Hello Internet and welcome to this day in history for the 16th of October. Where are we today? Well, we are in 1859, where a fellow by the name of John Brown gathered up a bunch of his friends and sons and whoever he could lay his hands on and led a raid at the United States Federal Arsenal at Harper's Ferry in what was then Virginia, what is today West Virginia. Brown did this because he was a radical abolitionist and wished to arm a slave Negro army, as he called it, by the way, not my terms, to destroy the oppressors of the South and free the black man from his bondage in America. Of course, there was actually quite a strong abolitionist movement in America at the time. That was, of course, the primary conflict between the South and the North. It wasn't just like the North were tisk, slavery is a bad thing. No, there were some quite militant abolitionists, which, of course, helped drive the Southerners that might have been receptive to an abolitionist movement into the arms of their own extremists that needed to maintain slavery and their way of life at all costs. There had even been a, shall we call it, proto-civil war in Kansas in the years leading up to this, what is known as Bleeding Kansas, where abolitionists and slave owners, or at least slave owner sympathizers, actually fought each other with weapons, and John Brown had been one of those abolitionists fighting in Kansas. Amusingly enough, in his youth he had actually been a member of a family that was fairly close with the family of Ulysses Grant and even to a certain degree William Sherman, so it wasn't as if he was a complete nobody. But anyway, his plan was to raid the Federal Arsenal at Harper's Ferry, which was completely undermanned and underguarded, take those weapons, equip the black slaves that would flock to him en masse, and lead a glorious crusade throughout the South, liberating blacks as they went and murdering all the slaveholders in a glorious orgy of violence. It didn't turn out quite that way, because you see, the slaves didn't exactly flock to him. No one actually came around to help him, and the people he tried to force into his little army didn't particularly want any part of it, so in the end, it stayed with him and his dozen or so supporters to try to hold up the forces that was rushing against him, since this was, of course, a direct attack against a federal government authority. Today, one would have called it a terrorist attack, or treason even, which honestly it was. And what did the United States military forces have in the area? Well, they just so happened to have fairly close by a company of Marines. Why there was a company of Marines in this area is not really part of this particular video, but this particular company of Marines were under the command of Lieutenant Jeb Stuart. Yes, exactly the Jeb Stuart who would lead himself to fame and fortune as a cavalry general on the Confederate side during the Civil War. However, Jeb Stuart was not the one leading the attack, because who was also in the area on vacation, actually on leave from the army, was Lieutenant Colonel Robert E. Lee. And again, this is a name I sincerely doubt I need to discuss further for people to know who he was. Lee quickly took command of his Marines and the local militia and laid siege to the fire station where John Brown and his men had fought it up after the slave army he expected didn't materialize. The battle itself was short. The firehouse was eventually stormed. A few of John Brown's followers were killed. A few of Lee's soldiers were killed, and the remaining terrorists or criminals or rebels or abolitionists or whatever you wish to call them were eventually put on trial and hanged. Eventually, of course, John Brown, as the Civil War broke out, became a martyr for the abolitionist movement in the North. Well, at that point he was already a martyr for the abolitionist movement in the North, and the song John Brown's Body Lies Mouldering in the Grave, But We Go Marching On, become one of the most popular marching songs of the Union Army during the battles that were to follow. But yeah, that was This Day in History for the 16th of October 1859, where John Brown attempted to start a nationwide slave rebellion in the United States with his raid at the Federal Arsenal at Harper's Ferry. Until next time, I have been the Sage, and I wish you all a very happy day.